Hey everyone. So we're going to continue on working on getting the motor out of this thing. Next up is the exhaust manifolds. Or in my case, I got headers on there. It's going to be a little different. I'll try to explain the differences as I go. For now, I'm going to try to clear out some room up top so that I can get to these bolts a little bit easier. I'm going to end up getting this out of the way. I'm actually going to take the coil packs as well as the wires off. I'll get this thing moved out of the way, and then we'll go underneath and do some stuff under there and get these things off. Here's the service manual pages for removing the stock exhaust manifolds. I've included a couple of the installation pages as well, so if you get to it before I do, you will have the torques for some of these bolts that are going back in. If you have a stock vehicle, you're not going to have this thing. It's just one hose coming off the supercharger going. It's going to come down and go to the pump, which is normally located down there. But because I have this thing here, I'm actually just going to take this whole thing off, get rid of some of these hoses, make some more room for me. Next up, I'm going to disconnect the hose off the pump. So I'm actually going to get this pump out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and take both these hoses off. I'm going to go ahead and put a plug on this side of it, get this hose off completely also. So I'm going to see if there's any more fluid. Usually there's some that gets stuck in this area because it has a hard time getting up and over. I'm going to try to avoid smacking these radiators. This thing just pull right up. That opened up this whole area. Now I got all that stuff out of the way. Next up, I'm going to take the nut off of this thing, and then it has, I think, 2 pegs. This thing will just pull right up. You can see here I've routed this harness right there. This usually comes around, it runs by the headers. But once you put these headers on, it's always a good idea to run it behind this to get it away from the heat, because there's been quite a few times I've seen issues. People melt the harness right there and have all kinds of funky things going on with the car. So always good idea to heat wrap it and move it out of the way. That peg, and then another peg right down there. Alright, now we can get the plug wires off, and like I said, I'm going to take the coil packs off as well because the motor's coming out. I'm just going to get all that stuff off of there. Now you can see I have these heat shields, but these are the stock wires, stock plug wires, and I've gone through about 4 or 5 sets. Now whether that was related to the tuning, I'm not sure, but ever since I went back to the factory wires with these metal heat shields on them with these boots, I have not had an issue. This side, as you can see, definitely is a little bit tougher. So you just pull right off. This one's always a little tricky because you got this dipstick tube in the way. Now these ones I still haven't disconnected yet, so I'll go ahead and first and then push. Something else I want to do real quick, and you might not have this, but I'm going to go ahead and get this catch can pulled up out of the way, give myself some more room. This isn't stock, so you may not have this on your car. Now this is the Mighty Mouse Mild, and it's got the road course top, which is why it has this, instead of the breather up here, it actually has a line that goes down. There's a check valve in here. Once the pressure is exceeded, the air can escape down through this tube, which I've routed underneath the car, and that way if there's any oil that is going to come out, it will go ahead and drain down there, as opposed to ending up on the engine or the headers and possibly causing a fire. Alright, now that we got all that taken off, you can see we got plenty of room to get to the bolts over here. Not so much over here, but there is enough room to get these all off. Okay, but actually before we get under the car, I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect this intermediate steering shaft. It is actually an 11mm bolt, top and bottom. If you can see down there, I actually swapped my bolt out because it was rubbing on the headers. That's a button head bolt, and I have a 5mm Allen head for it. So let's see if we can get these out. I'm going to go ahead and loosen this one up first. And you're going to need to take these out so you'll have enough room to get the headers down and out. Now I'm just going to loosen this one first, and then I'll go ahead and get the bottom out, because it's going to need to slide off this bottom shaft. It goes seats inside of it, so you're going to want to pry it up and get it to come out. Because of my headers and the heat out issues I was having, the rubber kind of placeholder that's connected to the bottom of that shaft basically overheated and hardened up and was total pain to get out. But if you have a factory vehicle with regular exhaust manifolds, when you pull that out, there will be like a V-shaped polyurethane kind of bushing that helps guide it into that actual steering box down there. So yes, this is not the factory bolt. This is a button head bolt. I added this on there. You have factory exhaust manifolds, most likely you're gonna have another piece like this that comes all the way down to here, and it slides over this. These are the splines going up into the steering wheel, but there is a union right here. This slides inside of that, so you're able to push this up into the firewall. I don't know if it's going to happen. I got to separate it down there, but it'll pull out of there, the bottom part going to the steering box, and this shaft will pull out and it'll slide. This whole thing will slide up into the firewall, and then you can pull this down and get it off of this shaft going up into the firewall. Biggest part is trying to separate it down there. Once you get it to pull up, then it'll slide up pretty easily. You can pull this bolt out and then this shaft will come off. Try this again. Get this big screwdriver in there. Put this wood. Ah, there we go. Ah, nice. See, I got those two shafts separated. Now this one will kind of work right off. Now you want to keep this oriented the same direction. Then when you plug this back in, it should be the same. Okay, now that we got that off, gives you a lot more room to drop the headers down, kind of come out. And actually on this side, you don't have to drop the shear panel underneath. If you disconnect the headers, these will actually just pull right up and out. Now once all these bolts are loose, this thing will drop down. And then all that's left holding it up is that little tab in the front. What you can do, and what I did last time, is actually bend this little tab down because it's just aluminum, and that'll give you enough room to slide it off. Got 10 15mm head bolts. So next we'll go ahead and get the headers disconnected, and then we'll get them pulled out. So next thing we're going to do is remove the sensors. I have the front O2. There's a front O2 right there. Here's the factory downstream O2, and then I have my wideband mounted right there. So we'll go ahead and disconnect the connectors first, and then we'll go to get those out of there, and then I can disconnect this mid pipe here. I'll undo that and undo these, get this pulled off, and then I'll be able to go up top, undo the 5 bolts that secure the headers to the heads, and they will be ready to come right out. So this is the passenger side rear O2. Go ahead and be able to pull that down, disconnect it by pressing it on that. I can pull this down. This is be pretty easy to. Now if you have the factory rear O2s, this is where they connect. So these are, well, this 22mm wrench works. Careful you don't drop these on the ground or bang them on stuff, because it will ruin them. Obviously these are going to be different than a factory setup. If you have a factory setup, comes down off of the heads to a 4-bolt flange, I believe, up top. From the 4-bolt flange, it connects to the first cat, and then on this side it comes to a slit fit connection like this. It's more back over here, but this connection is kind of a pain. I don't know what kind of sealant they use. I wish I could find it. I think it's some kind of aluminized sealant, but that was very well sealed and very hard to separate. Side, passenger side, it does the same, comes off the heads, goes to a 4-bolt flange up there to the cap, which is roughly around here, and then from there it comes down, and I think it has a 2-bolt flange, and that connects to the secondary cat here. Again, this is a track only car, so it doesn't see public road, which is why I don't have any cats on there. Pull that back. There's enough room slack in the exhaust back here to pull this backward. Go ahead and drop down. Man. But just for the time being, driver's side. Now that we got the bottom disconnected, we got the intermediate steering shaft out of the way, come over here to the driver's side, and we have 5 bolts. And we should be able to get these off. Now I'm gonna see if I can actually get this gasket off there. There is a bracket here. I don't have it on right now because it's makes things a lot harder to get to, but there's a bracket right here, and you're going to want to take that off because you won't be able to get to this exhaust manifold bolt if you don't. Before you take these headers off on this passenger side, you're going to want to take the dipstick tube off, which is this Torx head right here. Not going to be too easy to get to, but one thing I didn't cover is removing the valve cover heat shields. Just 2 bolts. I believe it's this one and this one. Again, I think those are T25s. There's number 4. Now before I get this last one off, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this dipstick tube up. Quite a bit more room. I was thinking about doing that, but work these down, rotate, slide them out. Was able to get these things off, wasn't too bad. It kind of wraps up the removal of the headers. Next video we will keep moving forward on getting the motor out. Thanks for watching, everybody.